actually finally have a plan.
We have a plan.
Sean, what the hell? There's so much DCU stuff happening.
There's so much.
No one likes to show off.
Unless what they're showing off is dope as fuck.
We hardly even know where to begin.
I know. James Gunn said he was going to announce part of the slate, and he did not disappoint. I thought like maybe he would just confirm a few things about, you know, some of the stuff that was maybe going on with Jason Momoa, just elaborate more on his Superman project, but we got a lot.
Okay, that's where I'm going to disagree with you, because I kind of figured if this is their first step forward as the new creative minds behind DC, they had to make a splash.
Yes, and I guess we should be transparent in that Sean and I are recording this on Monday night because Eric Eisenberg, who writes for CinemaBlend, actually attended, what would you call it? It's not
the presentation, the DC presentation with Peter Safran and James Gunn.
And got to hear it firsthand, and then we got to hear it through Eric. So big shout out to Eric. Thanks for that.
Woo!
And
thanks, Eric.
You're a good man.
Sean and I have not talked about anything yet, so we're just kind of gonna go over our initial reactions, big takeaways, and then of course there will be weeks and weeks of stuff to dive into.
After all that,
so we will get a little bit more specific and into some more theories and speculation in the weeks to come. So be sure to hit subscribe if you don't want to miss those. But Sean, just what do you think of the overall plan?
The program, the clean slate.
It's a reboot. I mean, we talked about the fact that how is it going to be a reboot? Is it going to be a clean slate swipe? And it's not 100% clean slate because you see a couple of other characters like Waller.
you know the deal.
But the one thing that they said that I thought was extremely fascinating is that everything that happens from Superman Legacy forward is going to be part of their canon and connected storyline. And that there will be places for, it sounds like, the existing films like Shazam 2 and Blue Beetle, which they kind of said already was coexisting as its own little corner of the universe and doesn't really affect the continuity of anything. But that with Superman Legacy, everything moving forward is just going to be the story that they want to tell and not really be beholden to anything that happened in the past.
Well, but they did say that the DC, so they've said multiple times specifically that the DCU is a multiverse.
Yes.
But they, to your point, yes, they clarified that, like, I think James even said, like, specifically Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck's characters are not part of that universe. And they mentioned, you know, they're going to be very specific moving forward and, like, specifically telling audiences this is DCU, this is Elseworlds. But interesting that we have confirmed that The Flash will indeed reset everything.
Make your own future. Make your own past.
Yes.
Which is something we've been speculating about for years now with
very much so. Very much so, which makes me wonder, because The Flash was a project that was conceived, you know, before there was a changing of the guard behind the scenes, right? So how much of it was rewritten to allow Gunn and Safran to then move forward with a clean slate? You know, did the Flash, like, what did the Flash in its original conceit set up? You know, what was it? Was it also hard rebooting everything, or what was the story?
That's interesting to think about, because I think James Gunn did say that, like, they didn't mess with the story. It kind of was what it was. They gave, you know, a few notes, but largely what The Flash is, what we will see is what The Flash was before James Gunn and Peter Safran were hired. But I do remember when The Flash went into production, it was when Walter Hamada was, you know, actively trying to not involve Henry Cavill Superman anymore, and there was talks of that new Superman project. And so I do wonder if, that was the plan all along, even before they came around, which, I mean, would be very convenient.
Oh, absolutely. And two other things are worth note with The Flash. If you listen to James Gunn describe, he has had a chance to see it, and he calls it like one of the greatest things that he's seen. Now, of course, he's company man and he has to, you know, tell people that it's great. But I honestly believe him when he was raving about Andy Muschietti, who he also said is going to stick around and do more DC things. Like, they're very excited about him as a filmmaker.
He said it's one of the greatest superhero films he's ever seen.
He's really, really fired up about it.
That's a bold statement.
Not to be sneezed at.
And then I want to mention, too, that they talked about Ezra Miller's future in the DC universe. And James Gunn basically said, let's see how the movie does. But Peter Safran was very forthright in saying that Ezra right now is very committed to the recovery process. But it's almost like, because none of, like, the slate that was announced didn't include Shazam, and it didn't include Aquaman, and it didn't include The Flash. You know, it had the Trinity, essentially. and then a bunch of new characters.
Which we know is not Robert Pattinson's Batman.
Right. Well, we'll get to Batman in a hot second. So much to get to.
Yeah,
but it all kicks off with a project that I am instantly fascinated with, which is Superman Legacy. The first movie in this new slate that has a date, that's essentially, it's Iron Man 2008. It's the beginning of this new saga for DC, and it's going to establish what I think is the tone for everything moving forward.
Well, that's confusing because then they did say, I don't know if you caught this bit of the audio, which, by the way, are we allowed to, can I include the audio in this video or no?
No, that's a hard no.
Okay, never mind.
This is not the time for you to fall back on journalistic integrity.
So ignore all of the times that we say listened, because that's how we received this information. But, oh shoot, what was I going to say? Oh, there was a part where they said that, because somebody was asking about, clarification, because they said basically after Superman Legacy, there will be 2 movies and 2 TV series in the DCU every year, which is really exciting. But they did, somebody clarified, okay, if Superman Legacy is supposed to be whatever, summer 2025, Peter Safran did say maybe a TV show could be 2024, because we know that Joker 2 is 2024, and that's an Elseworld story. They did call that out specifically, and then they said maybe TV, which I'm like, okay, is that Waller? Is that...
It felt to me, if it was anything, it was going to be Creature Commandos, because Gunn kind of said he has all 7 episodes written and it's almost into production. I think they have the characters and the cast. So since it's animated, I wouldn't be surprised if that comes together relatively quickly. And might just be like an introduction to, here's the type of storytelling that we're trying to do. But that in July of 2025, we're really kicking it off with.
Yeah.
It could be Waller also.
Under the right circumstances.
Because he even kind of said under his breath, somebody asked, because he said Waller would fall before Peacemaker Season 2, and he was like, I just haven't had time to work on Peacemaker yet. And he was like, so that's why.
What I think is really cool about that is that the Waller show could very easily, again, exist in a time period between Peacemaker 1 and Peacemaker Season 2 without really disrupting the flow.
Very good.
But yeah, I forgot that was a complete tangent from your original point about something that I forgot.
Oh, nothing. Just
there's so much.
just Superman Legacy and the fact that they confirmed that Peter Safran wants James Gunn to direct it.
Yeah.
Gunn has written it.
Yes, and I liked how transparent they were too about just they don't know. DC wants James Gunn to direct it. James Gunn does not know if that's the best choice, just because, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done when you're building a cinematic universe. And is it best to have James be the director of the first project and make a big splash? Or is it best for him to kind of sit across multiple things and get everything going? And they just don't know that yet, which is fair. I think I'm not mad about that.
Personally, I would like to see him stay in a producer creative overseer role.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with him as a director. I love James as a director, and I even think that he would be great in a Superman film. But in these early stages of the development of this, to have him take on the responsibilities of directing a film seems like a bit much. And I think if he brought in somebody that he really trusts...
I was going to say, that's got to be the key, because that would be scary to be like,
oh,
hey,
100%.
Here's the...
Yeah. It has to be somebody that he has a deep working relationship with and is extremely confident. And I'm not even making any suggestions right now. I'm just saying, looking at this slate and the amount of stuff that he has to oversee, I wouldn't want to see him put a movie on his plate at the exact same time. But who knows? Right. That's up to him. That's his call.
Yeah.
The point is, you do you. You got to look out for you.
I want to get to Lanterns, because I think Lanterns is the most exciting thing that I see on this slate.
Really? Okay. It's up there for me, but not.
It's an HBO Max series. It's going to focus on Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. And when they compared it to a True Detective type mystery, that's just fucking
on
dope.
Precinct Earth. I liked that.
Yes. Oh my God, that sounds so cool.
Finally getting live it's live action, right? They did clarify that.
Yes, the only thing animated is Creature Commandos. Everything else from that's part of the slate is live action.
Okay.
And what's cool about it is with the Lanterns, you can obviously do, a story set in deep space if you wanted to. But I like the fact that they're starting them off with a terrestrial based detective story.
Yeah,
I just think that that's so rad.
Yeah, and it's like he's said a lot, like the multiverse that we're gonna enter into, with Superman Legacy, like heroes have existed. It's not like, this new concept we need to introduce. So I think it'll be really exciting to just have, because if they're on Earth, that opens up so many possibilities of like who could show up and who's already there, and it's not necessarily like boxing out all these different characters from different worlds, you know. So I think that's really cool.
You know what disappoints me about that, though? Yes, you're right. They've established that this world that they're stepping into, heroes already exist. But I want to know why Batman is Batman. Like, what happened to his parents?
But
And
so he did mention,
what made him that way?
we could totally see. Oh, you're being sarcastic.
I'm being I'm being completely sarcastic.
I don't know why. Like when I in my head, I jumped ahead to not Batman. I thought you were gonna say more names, and then I'm like, I got way ahead of myself.
Nope, just talking about the Waynes
God.
getting shot to death in the alley outside the theater.
Wait, side note though, have you seen the way that Harley Quinn, the animated show, does it in season 3? It is.
No.
So there's an entire episode where like Harley basically goes inside Bruce's mind and you see his parents get shot on like a loop for 30 minutes. And like the whole episode is him just being like, this is my parents. It's anyway, yes. So, yeah, okay.
That's great. That's great.
That was super embarrassing.
Sure was.
All
Should
right.
we talk about Batman?
Yeah, let's talk about
Okay.
Batman. So, all right, now here's where we're going to get into. We've discussed in a bunch of these videos Batman confusion, right? Like,
The Batman
and they're
problem,
not doing a lot to really address it. They have made a couple of things very clear.
Yeah.
They're going to make a movie called Batman the Brave and the Bold. It is going to be a story about Bruce Wayne and Damian Wayne, which I think is sick.
Exciting.
So great.
Yes.
And it's going to include a number of members of the Bat family.
My legacy.
It's not Pattinson.
No.
He's going to be doing his own thing.
He's Elseworlds officially.
It's not Batfleck. But they have had conversations with Ben Affleck about directing something, but they wouldn't go so far as to say that he would be directing.
They said they were circling 2
Batman
different
Brave and Bold.
projects, and I have to imagine that one of those 2 is the Batman movie.
Okay. Yes, but I want Ben Affleck to direct that Lanterns movie because
Isn't it a series? I thought it was a series.
A series. I'm sorry. Give him the HBO Max series. Like, let him guide it through and fucking set it in Boston. Why not? Send the Lanterns into Southie and just let them go to town. That'd be amazing.
It is. Do it.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about them introducing yet another Batman who is going to be separated? He's a DCU Batman now, and he's not part of Robert Pattinson, and he's not the Ben Affleck Batman that we know and love.
Look, I love Batman. I don't think there are too many Batman. There can never be too many Batman. I don't care. But I do think, despite the fact, because they kind of addressed this and said like, hey, we're going to be really clear. This is DCU. This is not. And they said, we're not going to do the thing where it's like, you know, the Batman 2 comes out and then 6 months later, here's this Batman movie.
Yeah.
But I do think, and I've said this in previous videos, the best way to avoid this problem is to just let Reeves finish his trilogy before you even put this movie in theater. And I stick by that because I think no matter what you do, general audiences are going to be like, everybody knows who not everybody. A lot of people know who Robert Pattinson is, okay? He's very famous. Like, Twilight was a huge phenomenon. It's not just like some under the radar thing, and they want that to make money. And I do strongly believe that general audiences are still going to be confused if you have, you know, Superman Legacy coming out along with the Batman 3, and then, you know, even a year later, like, here's this new Batman. And it does sound like the DCU's Batman is going to be older because it's a father-son story. That he didn't really specify how old Damian Wayne would be, but I would imagine like youngest preteens, right? Like, there's
in the comics he's like 10 or 11. And he's
That's
a
a preteen.
fucking psychopath.
I know.
Yeah, he should be around 10.
I would love, like,
I would say.
Damian Wayne going through puberty.
Oh my God, yes. Well, and I actually hope, I think they said Robin, but I wish that that we had Nightwing. It'd be pretty cool if we had Nightwing at that stage.
They didn't have Nightwing.
That's very true. That is very true. And there have been a ton of Robins that we could roll in if we wanted to roll them in.
And James Gunn did say that Damian Wayne was his favorite Robin, I believe.
He did. Well, it's a fun dynamic to play off of, you know, pit those two against each other.
Yes, we can do a whole other video on just this.
Well, and we will. Like, let's emphasize now for people who have made it this far into the video. Like, we plan on going into great detail about all these different projects. This is just our initial reaction to the slate, basically. Let's get to a project that I know that you're super fired up about.
You say Game of Thrones, yeah. You say Game of Thrones, and you put it next to, and it's the political origins of Themyscira. Like, what else do you want from me? Like, that literally sounds like it was developed for me specifically. Yeah. And I am 100% in. I'm very, very excited about that. Look.
Now, what if I tell you the showrunners are David and David?
I was on a high. I just had to bring it down. Look, they did a good job with seasons 1 through 7, and all I'm saying is that season 8 could have used some more work. Anyway.
Does it concern you at all that it's pre-Diana?
It doesn't personally concern me, because like I still find it. Wait. Do you think they could bring Robin Wright back?
Oh, sure. I guess they could.
For that?
Yeah.
Because that could be a good way to like familiar face it if it's. Well, no, because I guess that would be the reset in the multi. There's a lot here.
No, not necessarily, because they do talk about, like they said, we're going to keep some actors around.
Yeah, and they mentioned like Gal would be open to doing stuff. But okay, so let's say like it's a multiverse thing. That'd be really cool if Robin Wright could come back. Anyway, I do think it might be difficult to market it to general audiences, but because like you're going to have to be like, it's pre-Wonder Woman, but Wonder Woman, you know, like, because not everybody knows what Themyscira is. So if you say Game of Thrones, but on Themyscira, like, I don't know how you're going to market that. So that's my... only major concern there, but no, that sounds amazing. Like, it does. Yeah, very, very really great. On board for that. Yeah, no notes. Yeah. Next.
There's a lot of really interesting things that they can do in that world. So, what else got introduced? Booster Gold. I don't know a lot about Booster Gold as a character. Like, it sounds like you can really go into some interesting places with him. And they talk. This involves time travel. Like, he's going to be coming back from the future to reestablish himself and his identity, and has something to do with
James Gunn literally called him a loser.
Yeah. And so has having this like imposter syndrome. So.
Yeah. It sounds like it's really ripe ground for comedy, drama, and action, which I think is, well, I don't want to say totally what we're going to see moving forward from the DCU, because he did make a point to be like, every project can be totally different and then wind together. But I think that sounds to me the most like Peacemaker-esque tonal project that he announced in this slate.
Yes, that makes sense to me. Yes, I can see that fitting into that mold. And he has said that they've talked to an actor for that.
Do you have any
didn't
guesses?
Reveal who it's going to be.
Oh, that
Ryan
could be a whole
Gosling.
other video.
Gonna be Ryan Gosling. All right, I want to mention Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing's a general weird character.
Yeah,
like
but hasn't like there's been a Swamp Thing movie in development and then out of development for like a while, right?
Yes, and there was a Swamp Thing movie made like in the 80s. Oh, you shouldn't.
Okay.
It's not very good. So I mean, I'm fascinated to see how they would update him. And then the last one is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, which is going to be based very heavily on Tom King's run. And he's actually been in the room working with them extensively on the script, which I think is fantastic.
Yes.
Like the brain trust that Gunn is putting together for this, including like Drew Goddard and what were some of the names that were in there?
Christina Hodson.
Thank you very much. Yes.
But yeah, to your point, I mean, and he even said like Andy Muschietti is gonna like stick around and do something else in DC, and something that they didn't bring up but like alluded to obviously is like clearly they're doing the Marvel thing where they're not going to exactly tell you what the tentpole crossover movies are, but those are I'm assuming going to be announced later. But like that's to me somebody that I could see like they saw how good the Flash was and now they're going to bring him on to do the first major, you know.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because you're right. This slate is lacking a Justice League movie, right? Like or team up type movie. The way they made it sound is that like by design, all of these stories, whether it be television, movies, the video games, which they said are going to be really big components of it all, they'll have the ability to like, you don't have to wait for a big crossover movie to see Superman and Batman together in a movie. Like if they need Superman to be in Batman the Brave and the Bold because the story requires it, then their Superman will just show up. And I was talking to a friend of mine and he compared it to like Ragnarok almost, where like you're far enough along in the thing that if the Hulk shows up to team up with Thor, you're not like, wait a second, why is that guy? Like this universe just exists and they can cross over if they want to. The fact that they said that they can't really reveal everywhere that they're going because if they were to announce the title, it would make it crystal clear what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Leads me to believe that they are still doing this Kingdom Come idea, where the Trinity is going to come back, Gal and Henry and Ben. I'm still holding on to that. Until I'm disproven, I'm going to hold on to the fact that they're doing Kingdom Come. And that all these characters that we're getting introduced to over the course of here are going to be teamed up against the existing trilogy from the Snyderverse.
And I'm sure as they announce more, we'll probably make a video that's like all the signs that James Gunn is building to this. Because like even like, I mean, we could look at what's been announced and the title of chapter 1, which is Gods and Monsters, and really go deep into that and try to map out what we think story-wise from there. But how do you feel about sort of like, do you like the way that Marvel approaches things of like standalone? Like, do you think it's going to be too much to have like Superman show up theoretically and, you know, the Lantern series? Like, do you think it's not like special enough? You know what I mean?
No. I think that's perfectly fine. I think if that's the way that they're approaching this universe, and I think it's really smart that their approach going into it from the get-go is just this universe exists. It's already up and running. We're not introducing new characters and how are they getting their powers. It just, they're in there. It just exists, right? So when they hit the ground running with a Superman movie and Superman is already very aware of the other heroes that exist in the world, then that way when you get to that part of the story, and it almost sounds like James was saying that like they will tell an individual story, but then it could also be part of the fabric of the larger story that's being told.
Yes.
Which that's when you can, so it's almost like in a nutshell, when the Justice League heroes showed up at the end of Peacemaker, right? It didn't feel really weird because we know it's part of that world. The way it was handled was strange.
Sure.
But for them to just show up, it wasn't weird because we know that Peacemaker took place in a world where...
And I was actually kind of like, oh yeah, I guess it would make sense if this threat is really this big of a threat to have them at some point. So I actually kind of liked that.
And in that sense, it was a punchline. But I think that James was almost saying like, I can bring these characters over whenever I want to, you know? And if...
Well, and to that though, here's a wrinkle potentially.
Ooh.
So in talking about cast... They mentioned that in the contracts, specifically, they're saying, hey, you got to be able to do TV, movies, games, voice, live action, whatever. Do you think they're going to have a hard time getting sort of, I don't want to say Marvel caliber actors, because it's not exactly like all of them were like A-listers when they started out, but Marvel is now pulling in really big actors. Do you think they're going to have a hard time securing people for these major roles?
No, I think 100%. Like if you look at the first phase of Marvel, like Chris Evans was not a big star. He was not a big star.
So you think they're going to lean more like, let's go with the unknowns or the non-A-listers?
Oh, yeah.
Like they're not going to pull in Margot Robbie. Well,
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think you'll find like the next Margot Robbie kind of. She's doing just fine. She's going to be Barbie in Greta Gerwig's movie. And all will be right with the world.
Thank you for bringing Barbie into this video, because I said I was going to do that, and I've forgotten.
Allow me to carry the flag for Barbie for this week.
I mean, but like, what about like, I mean, so if you're bringing in an older Batman, for example, like, don't you kind of want that to be a big name?
That could potentially be a big name. Like, but like, you're going to cast an unknown for Damian. You're going to cast an unknown for...
I even think you could get away with doing that with Superman.
Oh, yeah. Superman's going to have to be an unknown. It won't be an actor that you know.
You know, well, it might be an actor that you know from a little thing or that had a part here or there.
Possibly, yeah. But it's not going to be... I don't even think it'll be a Pattinson level higher. I think it's going to be someone who is a couple of steps below. I think, honestly, I think all these major ones. I think Supergirl, I think Booster Gold, I think they're all going to be actors that you don't necessarily know 100%.
Interesting.
I know.
Minus Jason Momoa, because we know he's signed on to do something.
Because even when Gunn cast Chris Pratt in Guardians, he was the fat guy from Parks and Rec.
He was Andy and he was a national treasure, Sean. No, but you're right. Yeah, you wouldn't think of, like, if you were thinking about like making those SEO lists of like X people we think should join the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Chris Pratt was probably not on a lot of those lists
at that time.
To mind, correct? Yes.
No.
And look at him now.
Everybody look at the people who filled out that cast. Like Dave Bautista was a wrestler, you know, and no one knew Karen Gillan really. Like Doctor Who fans kind of knew her,
Yeah.
and Zoe Saldana had a background, but like they covered her in green makeup, and you know, like they cast the characters essentially, and like James has kind of proven throughout the year, like even okay, so let's even use Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3. Like Will Poulter is not a huge star, you know, but he's Adam Warlock now, and he's a terrific actor. You know, he's going to be fantastic in that. So, but at the same time, in Guardians 2, he casts, you know, Stallone in a tiny role and Kurt Russell in a major role. So he's not opposed to doing that if he has to.
I mean, Michelle
But I think he
Pfeiffer just came in and was like, sure, I'll be in these Ant-Man movies, fine.
Yeah. Well, now it's kind of like lazy that all these big actors, you know, have come in to join.
Well, that's what my point, I guess,
the
is that, like, I
universe.
don't think that DC Studios is going to be able to say, like, hey, just come in and, like, do this cool part for a little bit and, like, get your paycheck and leave. It sounds like
Harry Styles. Like when Harry Styles shows up in a cameo. Come on.
I'm going to laugh when Harry Styles is cast as Superman.
Can we talk a bit about characters that they didn't discuss at all?
Yeah.
No Green Arrow that we know of yet, unless he just pops up as a supporting character. Your boy Cyborg's nowhere to be seen in any of this.
Not even really Wonder Woman, like if we're talking Trinity.
Not even really Wonder Woman. Yeah. I'm trying to think who else would have been part of the bigger picture that isn't referenced. Well, I mean, no real clear-cut plans for Aquaman beyond
Or the
second movie.
Shazamly.
Yeah. Oh God, is that what they're calling them?
Yes.
The
and all of-
Shazamily?
The cast is calling it the Shazamly.
It shouldn't work, but hot damn it does.
Let's run through really fast before we run out of time. A couple of things that they said that they're trying to get to. So Matt Reeves is working on Batman 2 individually. He came in, he pitched some big ideas. They love it. They want to keep going. Two quick things that James confirmed. He made it very clear that Henry Cavill was not fired.
Yeah.
But that he just was not hired. Like he was never in contention for their role of Superman. So they never really fired him from anything.
Yep.
Which then goes to show that the handling of that couldn't have been worse. Of the old regime letting Dwayne Johnson continue to believe that the power of the hierarchy of power in the DC universe was going to change.
And like destroy your relationship. Like I bet Dwayne Johnson's not going to be super keen to work with Warner Brothers in any capacity moving
No, I
forward.
don't imagine.
Like why would you burn that bridge? Like what?
No, that's done. So, and then the other thing that he clarified, that James Gunn clarified, is that Momoa will not be playing two characters at the same time. So Lobo is the other character that hasn't been mentioned in any of this. A lot of Lobo chatter.
But then at the end, Peter Safran was like, in Jason's mind, he always envisioned Aquaman as a trilogy.
He did say that, yes.
So what is going on?
I don't know. I do not know. These will be videos for another time.
But also just really, really quickly, one other just like big takeaway that I had, and I'm gonna sound like a shill, but whatever. It does really seem like James Gunn gets it. Like, he gets how frustrated DC
100%.
fans have been. He gets how hurt they've been and how they're probably not going to react to this with 100% enthusiasm because they're going to be like, great, we've heard this before. Like, talk to me when it happens kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But he does seem to really be putting story first. He mentioned how he doesn't like outside producers coming in because he thinks that that completely changes power dynamics and, you know, messes up directors' visions. Like, he really does care. And I'm trying to be as hopeful as possible with that nugget of, like, it really does feel like he is going to let directors with strong visions do their thing as long as it's within sort of the story arc that they want to tell. And I think that that's really exciting.
That's why he's got to let someone else direct Superman Legacy. I'm sorry, but he really should.
What if it's Zack Snyder?
Okay, wait, hold on. I did want to ask you this. If you could give Zack one project on this list, what would you give him?
On this list?
If they could hire Zack Snyder to come back to DC.
It would be the Wonder Woman series.
It would be the one. Of course it would be.
Yeah.
Yes, of course it would be. Like, look what he did with Justice League and those scenes shot in Themyscira.
Yeah, and he's always like, I've really always enjoyed the way that he kind of like, politics have always been in sort of like the threads of all of his stories, and I think he could approach a lot of those dynamics in really interesting ways and still also kind of keep the same sort of like, hey, you're on Themyscira, these are Amazons and they're like fucking powerful.
Yeah.
Like, I think he could strike that balance well. So if I had to pick one, it would be that one. What about you?
Of course. No, that's the answer.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly where I thought you were going with it. That's the only answer. I mean, I would love to see him tackle that. Get him Swamp Thing. No, it's got to be that.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't hate that either. Because I think everything else kind of fits like the tone of something else.
Do you think Zack Snyder would ever come back to DC under James Gunn?
No.
Not even under James Gunn. They like each other.
It doesn't matter. No, you can't. That would be asking. That's literally opening Pandora's box.
Like in 10 years?
Maybe. maybe in 10 years. I mean, if he's the right guy for the part, if he's the right guy for the story, bring him in. But I want to see some more diversity brought in. Yeah. I want to see, some African American directors and some female directors and.
I probably shouldn't have just pitched a man to helm the Wonder Woman series.
One other thing not mentioned here is Black Superman. Like, is Black Superman still a thing that's happening?
Who's to say that James Gunn's Superman legacy isn't a Black Superman?
That's true. Very true.
That's true.
So needless to say, Hannah, I think we're going to be making a ton of these videos moving forward, which means that you guys are going to keep it here, right?
No, leave.
Well, for now, you should leave. Goodbye. We'll talk to you soon. Hit subscribe and turn on your notifications so you know when we're back. And we missed you guys. We were looking forward to this big video, which is why we had to hop on late on a Monday night and not break embargo and save this until it was ready to go. And hopefully we were the first analysis that you guys listened to and you're super excited for it. And in the comments down below, let us know the other projects that you want us to dig deeper into next. And we'll use your feedback to determine where we're going to go from here. So see you guys soon. Bye.